Sophie, till late in the third quarter, you guys were struggling offensively in that frame. Second half in general didn't feel the same as the first half on that end. Did something change for you guys? What did you see as kind of leading to stalling on that end?
Yeah, I think we were just kind of slow. And every time that we're slow, especially defensively, it just somehow affects our offense.
The Indiana Fever just suffered a crushing 88-84 defeat to the Washington Mystics, one of the league's bottom-ranked teams. And without Caitlin Clark, the cracks were wide open. Sophie Cunningham didn't hold back in her post-game remarks, sending a blunt message that has fans talking. Indiana had control early, building a double-digit lead before everything unraveled. Now, the loss drops them to 7th place, dangerously close to slipping out of playoff contention. What went wrong? Who's to blame? Stephanie White's coaching, careless turnovers, or a lack of execution when it mattered most? Tonight, we break down the collapse, Sophie's fiery words, and why this loss could be a turning point.
Above her head is Cunningham with a steal. Cunningham feeds Sims, who goes coast to coast and lays it in. So they had to make sure they had the right shot clock time as well while they're reviewing that. So Indiana with a 10-point lead here. 6 minutes until halftime as Boston finds some space and knocks it down. Now Sims launches ahead for Mitchell. What a pass by Odyssey Sims.
Indiana looked like the better team early on. Odyssey Sims was pushing the pace, Kelsey Mitchell found gaps, and Aaliyah Boston controlled the paint. By the second quarter, the Fever had stretched the lead to 13 points, silencing the Washington crowd. At that moment, it looked like a routine win. But basketball is a game of momentum, and Washington flipped the script with a blistering 22-7 run. Suddenly, the Fever's crisp execution disappeared. The offense stalled, the defense broke down, and frustration built with every possession. What should have been a statement win turned into yet another reminder of Indiana's inconsistency this season.
Playing for the Buckeyes. Here is the Buckeye product on a backdoor pass, but Mitchell lost the handle. Sutton thought about the three, steps in, Hull got a piece. Dolson has been wide open all possession, splashes home a three, and we are level at 47.
That swing wasn't fueled by Washington's stars dominating. It was Indiana losing control of the basics, defense and discipline. Turnovers piled up. Missed rotations left shooters wide open. And perhaps most damaging of all, the Fever committed 21 fouls, gifting Washington 26 free throw attempts. Each mistake chipped away at their lead. The Mystics hit timely threes, and Indiana's double-digit cushion collapsed. The Fever went from cruising to clinging, and the momentum never returned. For fans watching, it wasn't bad officiating. It was Indiana beating themselves possession by possession.
Sims with 5 off the bench. Indiana has 8 first-quarter bench points. That's typically been a strength when they're playing well, as Iriafen just bullies her way inside. Now Citron being guarded by Lexi Hull. Hull goes over the screen, defends her really well. Citron just has to fire it up, and a circus shot for Citron.
Adding to the sting, Washington's young rookies stole the show. Sonia Citron played fearless, finishing with 21 points. Kiki Iriafen muscled her way to 18 points and 12 rebounds, punishing Indiana with second-chance efforts. These weren't empty numbers. They were game-changing plays that shifted momentum against a Fever team desperate for a win. Meanwhile, Indiana's veterans looked rattled, unable to steady the game when the run came. With the playoff race tightening, dropping games to a rebuilding team led by rookies is more than frustrating. It's damaging.
Why at the same time? Because I'm you and you're me. We switch parties. Go. Subs in the chat!
Indiana did get strong individual performances. Aaliyah Boston was a force with 20 points and 9 rebounds. Kelsey Mitchell dished 9 assists while scoring 14. Sophie Cunningham added energy and 6 assists, while Odyssey Sims continued to impress with 11 points off the bench. Lexi Hull provided defensive effort, diving for loose balls and contesting shots. But as good as those efforts were, they weren't enough to overcome a lack of direction. The Fever players worked hard, But without adjustments and discipline, their production couldn't stop the collapse.
Oh, gets it into Boston. Hand off Mitchell. Indiana has to hurry. Lob back for Boston. Boston finishes. It's a 2-point game, 5.9 seconds remaining.
That brings us to Stephanie White. Fans have grown frustrated with her decisions, and this loss only amplified the criticism. One glaring question: why was Chloe Bibby left out? Bibby is shooting 42% from deep this season, yet logged 0 minutes in a game where Indiana desperately needed floor spacing. White later explained she sat Bibby for defensive concerns. But that reasoning felt empty as the Fever surrendered open threes, allowed paint dominance, and committed 21 fouls anyway. The explanation only deepened fans' frustrations, because a proven shooter was left on the bench while the offense collapsed into isolation sets.
Cunningham looking, finds Mitchell, launches a corner three, it won't go, rebound Aixler, and this young Washington Mystics group who continues to impress throughout this season. And Sidney Johnson in his first year comes up with a big win on the road.
White admitted afterward, the offense was getting stuck. Possessions turned into Kelsey Mitchell isolations, while shooters stood waiting on the perimeter. Mitchell still finished with 14 points and 9 assists, but the game plan placed too heavy a burden on her shoulders. By the fourth quarter, Washington was loading the paint against her drives, and Indiana had no counter. This wasn't on Mitchell. She did everything she could. The problem was predictability. And predictability at this stage of the season is a recipe for disaster.
I think we over-dribbled at times. Our off-ball movement wasn't there. We did a lot of standing. It's almost like we gave the ball to Kelsey and just tried to watch her work. And that's not when we're at our best. I mean, yes, certainly we want to have the ball in our hands, but we've got to continue to get movement with and without the basketball. It was getting stuck. I mean, we want to play 0.5 to 1 second basketball, and we weren't. And it's got to get moving.
That's where Sophie Cunningham comes in. After the game, she didn't sugarcoat anything. Cunningham said directly, "We've faced adversity, but that can't be our excuse. We need to get back to being dogs." It was a blunt, passionate demand for accountability, calling out her team for being outworked. Unlike White's explanations, Cunningham's words resonated. Fans heard urgency, ownership, and frustration from a player who gave everything on the floor. That honesty cut deep because it reflected what everyone saw. The Fever had fight, but not direction. The contrast between Cunningham's honesty and White's explanations couldn't be clearer. While Cunningham demanded toughness and accountability, White leaned on phrases like offense got stuck and defensive matchups. The players talked about urgency. The coach talked about system breakdowns. That divide is what fans are reacting to. In high-pressure games, players need leaders to steady them. Instead, Indiana looked unprepared once momentum shifted. The disconnect between player urgency and coaching adjustments has become the defining storyline of this late-season stretch. Of course, the absence of Caitlin Clark looms large. Without her, Indiana loses its primary ball handler, floor spacer, and late-game closer. Add in season-ending injuries to Sydney Colson and Ari McDonald, and the backcourt has been gutted. That forced White to rely on Sims, who's only been with the team for 2 games. Considering the circumstances, it's remarkable Indiana even built a 13-point lead. But without Clark, every possession is harder, every mistake more costly, and every adjustment more critical. This wasn't just another regular season loss. It was a missed opportunity. Beating Washington would have given Indiana breathing room in the standings. Instead, they slid into 7th, dangerously close to losing playoff control. Against a bottom-ranked opponent, this was a must-win game, and the Fever let it slip away. These are the nights that haunt teams in late September when playoff seeding is on the line. The fan base isn't just upset about the loss, it's the way it happened. Repeated mistakes. No plan to protect the lead. Poor rotations. A lack of adjustments. Fans see talented players working hard but being put in positions to fail. The words "getting stuck" have become symbolic of this season, a system that freezes instead of adapts. That frustration is boiling over, especially online, where supporters are calling for changes before the playoffs. The truth is clear: Indiana didn't lose because Washington was better. They lost because they gave the game away. Fouls, turnovers, stagnant offense, and questionable coaching decisions opened the door. The Mystics walked right through it. This late in the season, those mistakes matter more. Playoff basketball is about execution, and Indiana still hasn't proven they can close when it counts. So where does Indiana go from here? They still control their playoff destiny, but the margin for error is shrinking. Sophie Cunningham's message was clear: stop making excuses and bring back the edge. Stephanie White faces the challenge of proving she can make the adjustments to match that urgency. And with Caitlin Clark's return still uncertain, the Fever's resilience will be tested like never before. Indiana had the talent, the lead, and the opportunity. But when it mattered most, they let it slip away. Sophie Cunningham called for accountability, and her words now echo across this team's season. Will the Fever find their fight again, or will moments like this define their collapse? That's the question hanging over Indiana tonight.